Good morning. My name is Pate Randall, and I serve on the Board of Trustees for the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spartanburg. Thank you for joining us today. As the pandemic progresses, the UUCS Board continues to carefully consider how to maintain our physical safety while also providing for the connection and emotional well-being of our congregation. We must do both. Please continue to practice the basics: wear your mask, social distance, limit group size, being outside wherever possible, and wash your hands. We encourage small groups, such as covenant groups and committees, to meet in person, outside, in your homes, or on church grounds, practicing all of our safety protocols. And we will continue to plan one-off events using careful planning and following all of our safety measures. There's a lot going on in the life of this congregation. Allow me to share a few announcements. The Pastoral Care Associates invite you to join them for a special meditation centered on hope. The service is this Wednesday, January 27th at 5:30. It will open with 15 minutes of silent meditation, followed by 45 minutes of hope-filled quotations, music, and videos. We'll end the evening with 30 to 45 minutes of social time from 6:30 to 7:15. Check your happenings for the Zoom link. There are 2 new adult enrichment opportunities beginning in February, and now is the time to sign up. One is a Zoom video series on the history of our Unitarian Universalist movement, facilitated by UUCS member Jim Scanlon, beginning in February. Please see the happenings for more details. The other is OWL, O-W-L, which stands for Our Whole Lives, for parents of K through 6th graders. OWL is a comprehensive lifespan human sexuality education program offered through the UUA. It's a 2-hour session offered with the aim of providing parents of children's grades kindergarten through 6 the confidence needed to be the primary sexuality educators of their children. We'll address questions such as, why talk about sexuality with children that young? And why educate children about sexuality in a religious community? The program will be co-facilitated by Sybil Argentar, our Director of Religious Education, and Jim Scanlon, an OWL-trained elementary facilitator. Choose from one of 2 sessions, Sunday, February 7th, from 2 to 4 p.m., or Saturday, February 13th, from 2 to 4 p.m. To enroll, please contact Sybil. And next Sunday, January 31st at 12:30 p.m. Save the date. It's our annual Generosity of Giving campaign. We will have a virtual celebration of our congregation's unbelievable generosity in service and giving. Come and celebrate unsung heroes and learn about our annual fund campaign this year. Brandon Carter, our stewardship chair, is here to tell us more.
Thanks, Pete. I want to take just a moment to talk a little bit more about the event next Sunday that Pete just mentioned, and to invite you, to invite everyone to our annual Stewardship Celebration event. Everyone on our UUCS mailing list should have received a mailing last week that contained 2 brochures with some information. The white brochure contains more information about our UUCS Legacy Circle giving. If this is something that resonates with you, or if you just want to learn more about this generosity stream, I encourage you to take a look at this brochure or visit uucs.org/endowment to learn more. And there'll be also a short Q&A session at the end of our event next Sunday, just to kind of answer some of the questions that you might have. The other brochure is the kind of dark blue one, which lays out the different components of the stewardship event next week. And I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. If you did not receive the mailing or not on our mailing list, you can easily view a digital copy of this brochure on our stewardship page at uucs.org/stewardship. This year, as part of our annual fund drive campaign, we had a team of teams working to help broaden our vision for what stewardship means here at UUCS. So please join us this next Sunday, where our hospitality team, led by Pam Stoll, will be announcing our unsung heroes in service for 2020 this past year. You'll also hear a bit more about an interest and skills survey developed by our Leadership Development Committee that can help connect your gifts and abilities with service opportunities here at UUCS. Our board president, Linda Leibel, and Minister Scott Neely will be kicking off our annual fund drive campaign. This campaign needs your input to help set the fiscal budget for next year that will start in July. I just want to point out, just real quickly, on the inside of the main brochure on the right-hand page, there is some information at the top about the actual stewardship event, the date, time, and where you can find the Zoom link for the event. And the last 2 sections are some information that you can contribute to help leadership and the financial committee to set the budget for next fiscal year. Like I just mentioned, the live Zoom link for this event is in that brochure, and it's also posted on our stewardship page at uucs.org/stewardship. I encourage and invite all of you to dress up from the waist up, which is kind of the Zoom norm here lately. Put on your favorite blouse or dress, pull out your best tie or dust off that tux or party dress, and join us for a celebration of generous service and generous giving that will launch us into 2021. Again, that's 12:30 next Sunday via Zoom. Visit uucs.org/stewardship to learn more, to access the live meeting at the event time. And there's also more information about this event and the happenings that went out last week and the happenings that will go out later this week. So I look forward to celebrating with you next week. Thank you.
This is an amazing congregation. Especially in times like these, we need each other. Thank you for being a congregation of care. Thank you for being so generous. And thank you for being a part of this congregation today.
Good morning. Thank you for being a part of this congregation this morning and over the last many weeks and months. This is an amazing congregation. We are doing so much. This pandemic has gone on so long. It is affecting all of our lives in big ways and small. I can tell you that just from some of the pastoral conversations and contexts that I and many others in this congregation have had, because it's not just me, we work as a team, many of us. Many of the conversations and contexts that we have had this week have been serious, dire as the strain of the pandemic wears on us. And yet, as Aaron has sung, and as we have experienced in various ways this week, you can think of the ways that we've experienced it this week. Morning has broken. It is breaking. Morning is breaking because so many of us have worked so hard for so long, not only for ourselves, but for all of us, including ourselves, to help each other through this time and on to something better. I want to share with you one way that you can join in that work, and then a story of the remarkable work of this congregation. First, a way that you can be a part of this. Many months ago, this congregation decided to engage in a process of consciousness, to examine our own biases, our own place in this world, our own aspects of identity, race and gender and sexual orientation, the way all those things condition us and shape us, and how as a congregation we can be more effective in the world, more loving and more understanding and more catalysts for justice, just by understanding ourselves better. Tomorrow night, a group will meet after watching the movie 13th. You can find this movie on many streaming platforms on the internet. And we'll engage in dialogue about the difficult dynamics of race and mass incarceration in our country today. I want to invite you to watch the movie and to join in the conversation. And if you can't watch the movie, you can still join in the conversation. You can find that information in the happenings and how to connect. And if you can't join in the conversation, then just watch the movie. And then in a couple of weeks, on Sunday afternoon, February 7th, we'll engage in another consciousness dialogue, a social justice dialogue, to think about who we are in this world and how we can engage with one another more effectively. It's work that doesn't happen just once. It's work that happens over and over again. And it's tough. It's very uncomfortable. We face hard truths. But when we go through that difficulty, we discover that we are much more than what has conditioned us. That we are more even than the aggregate of all aspects of our identity. And that we are more than individual selves. We are a team that can do very powerful work in the world together. I invite you to join in that work with us. It is wonderful and profound work. Now I want to share with you a story about the unbelievable work of this congregation over months. The way that this congregation defies logic. The way that as a team, we show up in ways that none of us could as individuals. You heard Brandon speak about the launch of our annual fund next week. And you heard Pate speak about the unbelievable generosity and work of this congregation. And last week, if you listened to the service, you heard Alan Jenkins talk about our elevator campaign, the implausible and amazing decision of this congregation to see if we could raise the funds to begin construction of an elevator that would change the physical heart of this congregation, of this facility, so that when we're able to return after the pandemic, everyone will have access to the full scope of this facility. Everyone in this congregation and in our wider community. And here's the unbelievable thing. All through this pandemic, we have through our financial generosity, each one of us contributing in our own way, in ways large and small, but all equal because all part of the same effort. We have sustained the annual budget of this congregation. We have been able to provide for our staff and for our operations, for our facility, without stint throughout this pandemic, because each of us has found a way to contribute to the overall work of this congregation. And then in the course of that, we have created a fund to support Latinx immigrants, a fund that we and members of our immediate community created at more than $20,000, which then was augmented by further gifts from foundations across the state, so that we have now provided direct support for Latinx immigrants across our state in coalition with immigrant advocacy agencies in South Carolina at a scale of more than $125,000 in this pandemic. People have been marginalized and excluded and who are in deep need of help. We have multiplied the initial unbelievable gifts of this congregation by more than 6 to serve people we'll never know. And beyond that, when we saw the ridiculous but beautiful possibility to see if we might be able to build an elevator, a project more than a decade in the planning that we've never been able to fund before, and advanced a short-term campaign just November and December, this congregation has now raised more than $60,000 for a total elevator fund of more than $90,000. Beyond 70% of our goal, so that we're in a position now to begin construction as we complete the fundraising. Unreal. And lest we think that that is for ourselves, it is for ourselves and our community. This will be a shared resource. And lest we think we are spending only on ourselves, let me share with you one more unbelievable expression of the profound generosity of this congregation. Throughout the pandemic, members of this congregation have continued to support the Minister's Discretionary Fund, a confidential fund that is used to provide immediate direct assistance for people in this congregation and our immediate community who are in financial need. Mortgage, rent, food, utilities. And to help them not only with direct assistance, but to support them in finding other resources as well, and just to be an emotional and spiritual support with them, a way to connect and to help each other, that the finances open that door so that many more resources beyond that can be activated. Throughout the pandemic, members of this congregation, very often with very small gifts, have sustained that fund so that we've been able to show up for each other and for members of our community over and over and over again. Christmas Eve, for that one service, we shared the plate to replenish the Minister's Discretionary Fund, a fund that was almost depleted. Only small resources left on the evening of December 24th, and a difficult winter before us all. And we made that appeal to this congregation. Will you support the Minister's Discretionary Fund so that we can continue to care for each other through the difficult days that lie ahead? We were funding the budget. We were supporting Latinx immigrants across the state. We were raising an impossible amount of money to build an elevator. And also, on that one night, Christmas Eve, this small congregation of of about 175 members, about 300 active participants, a small congregation, in order to support one another in the midst of all else that we have done. This congregation raised $17,000 for the minister's discretionary fund to care for each other. I feel so awkward to tell you this story because I don't want you to hear me bragging. What I feel is not arrogance or bragging. It is humility and awe that this small congregation, in the midst of these very difficult times, times when many of us are under financial strain, we have found a way not only to do one thing, and not only to do two things, but out of our abundance, out of the sharing of our gifts, to do many, many things at incredible scale to impact all of our lives. This changes all of us, to see us through. So as we move into the annual fund, the Generosity of Giving campaign, please hear this. Please hear this. When we share our gifts on any scale, 1 penny or a few pennies more, it doesn't matter. When we fuse our gifts, our financial gifts, our gifts of time and talent, our gifts of emotion and spirit, our gifts of love, when we fuse our gifts, your gifts and mine, we exceed all possible plans, all possible expectations and boundaries, and we show up for one another. We help each other through, and we rewrite the story of who we are as individuals and as a congregation and as a community, as a people. You are unbelievable. This congregation is unbelievable. Thank you for being people of abundance. Thank you for being people of reason and logic who do the illogical and the unreasonable. Thank you for being people of such love. I am humbled, and I am in awe, and I am grateful. Welcome to this congregation today.
We are going to light the chalice with words from Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams. To do our work, to come into deep knowing of who we are. That's the stuff that's bringing down systems of oppression is made of. And so, capitalism in its current form couldn't survive. Patriarchy couldn't survive. White supremacy couldn't survive if enough of us set about to work of reclaiming the human spirit, which includes reclaiming the sense of humanity of the people that are the current vehicles for those very forms of oppression.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
Our covenant, written by this congregation, guides the way in which we live in relation to one another. These words, powerful when they were written, continue to gain power as our congregation has truly embraced these words, especially during this pandemic. Please hear them and know that they are intentional. Know that we take them seriously as we strive to create the world that we know is possible. Let us join our voices here and at home to speak the truth of our covenant. We are a people of faith and hope. Together we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to systems of violence and oppression with the power of love beyond belief. Now, this is the time in our live service when we will share joys and concerns by visiting our rippling bowl to hold one another in care and to share what's in our heart. Please look at the creative rippling bowls posted weekly by Stacy Jackson on our closed Facebook page. We invite you to share silently with our community now and know that here your joys and concerns are held in our heart. During the offertory, we bring our gifts. We are sharing the plate with two organizations serving on the Mexican side of the U.S. southern border, Global Response and Bridge of Love Across the Border. To make a contribution, please visit our website at uucs.org. Below this live stream, you will see a button that says Help. Please give as you are able. We thank you and appreciate all your gifts.
And now we engage in something that is not a fix, it is a practice. I practiced piano 7 years. This practice I have done for over 20 years. It's been way better than the results of my piano practice. This is a loving kindness meditation, a metta meditation. We begin by expressing love for ourselves. May you be free of suffering. May you be at peace. May you know the joy of your own true nature. May you be healed. May you be a source of healing for all others. May you know love. We then offer loving kindness to those we care about. Perhaps a person, perhaps a pet. May you be free of suffering. May you be at peace. May you know the joy of your own true nature. May you be healed. May you be a source of healing for all others. And may you know love. Next, we express love for those who may cause us difficulty in small ways and in large. May you know the joy of your own true nature. May you be healed. May you be a source of healing for all others. May you know love. And then for all living beings, we offer loving kindness. May we be free of suffering. May we be at peace. May we know the joy of our own true natures. May we be healed. May we be a source of healing for all others. May we know love. And for the children of all ages out there, may you know the sound of the ice cream truck coming.
In world religious traditions, there's an archetype of the holy fool, a kind of clown who helps us see the seriousness of reality through joy and through gentleness and lightheartedness. I'm grateful for Judy Allen's humble willingness to play the holy fool for us. May she also have ice cream. Join me in silence. In my life, there are several people who are very difficult for me. And in the world, even more so. For those who are in close proximity to me and my family, we have to be very mindful of who these people are, how they operate, what makes them, as best we can discern, do the things that they do, say the things that they say. And we have to figure out how to take care of ourselves and live in the same universe with them. And so also for the greater world. My wife and I spend time talking with our children about these people who pose difficulty or even threat to us. And we talk about the importance of clear boundaries, particularly with folks who can't maintain good boundaries themselves. The responsibility that we have for ourselves and for them to establish clearly articulated boundaries so that we can coexist, so that we can be in this world together. And we talk about how across those boundaries we can still wish and hope for and strive for the very best for those people, not exposing ourselves to inappropriate danger or risk, being very mindful of the challenges that are there, the real problems that are there, but not dehumanizing these people either. And even more, recognizing and respecting their humanity, the dignity and worth of every person, and sending them that love. These conversations are very difficult. They are fraught. They often involve tears and hard stories and disagreement, mixed up experiences that don't always coincide neatly. Some people like to make themselves into a wedge to create division and separation by being wonderful to some people and horrible to others. And it can be very difficult for people to come to a coherent sense of what right relationship is with such a person. Many of you know what I'm talking about. It's ambiguous and difficult, and it would be nice just to shut it all out and walk away, to be rid of it all. But when we do that work together, difficult and mixed up and fraught as it is, of trying our best to see as clearly as possible what is often an intentionally confused situation, purposefully manipulated and confused. We find a way to establish clear boundaries and articulate them, and to recognize and value the humanity, the real and undeniable and precious humanity of even that person or those people. And with our wishes and hopes and real striving to send them love. Love that is often not an emotion. Love that is often opposite of the feeling that we have. Love that is a hard and difficult choice. Love at its deepest and most profound. On January 6th, in the afternoon, ironically, in the tradition that I and my family come from, a day called the Feast of the Epiphany, a day of light, when members of our own country stormed our capital, and what I think could only be called a day of darkness for us all. A person that I have to establish clear boundaries with, and who I also love. Communicated with me in real time as the events were unfolding exactly why the insurrectionists were justified and exactly what they were doing. Now, what am I supposed to do with that? How am I supposed to cope with that? That we're watching the same events unfold, seeing them happen in real time, and I am being fed a story that I know is badly misguided, terribly misinformed, deeply damaging to all of us, to this world and this nation, this community, to this relationship, to my own individual life, to all of that. How do we deal with that? All month, we are thinking about the meta meditation, loving kindness meditation, sending loving kindness to ourselves and those we love and those we find most difficult, and to all beings. And today we reflect on kindness with those we find most difficult. The gift of the meta meditation is that it is not an idea. It's not a concept. Only by default is it a theology or a philosophy. Fundamentally, the meta meditation is a practice. It's not something that we have to believe in. It's not something that we have to have figured out or to totally understand. It's like a compass or a flashlight, something that can guide us in the murky ambiguity of life, something that can steer us true, help us find a true north in what is otherwise a very difficult to discern and often purposely confused and manipulated reality that we live in. The meta meditation is a practice, and I want to urge you, beyond anything that I say, and anything that I say that you may agree with or not, to rewind this recording and go back and listen to Judy again, and do the practice with her, and do it over and over and over again, day after day. Do the practice. Use the compass. Use the flashlight. My role this month is just to recommend the tool that Judy is giving us. So let me highlight the wisdom in this tool, in this practice. We are on this terribly difficult step in the meditation today, kindness with those we find difficult. But we begin with kindness for ourselves. And in that, we share love for ourselves, buttressing ourselves and expressing value for ourselves when others may not have. Learning to be aware of our own worth and dignity and confident in that, building that up over time when it has been diminished by the world around us. But in that, there is also humility, reckoning with the fact that we're not perfect. We're just not. And in fact, we can think of a lot of things we've done that we wish we hadn't done. Moments of embarrassment in my own life come back to me at the most inopportune times and stop me in what I'm doing, so that I think, why on earth did I do that then? And may I not do such again, although you know that I will. I sure know that I will. When we stop and offer loving kindness to ourselves, we value ourselves, and we also experience our humanity, that there are limitations to all of us. That's part of the order of things. And that doesn't have to be bad, but it is real. And we should have the humility to recognize that. And then we share love with those who we hold most dear. And that is a warm and generous feeling, but one that also causes us to realize these are the very people that we most often get into conflict with, and that we're most prone to hurt because love makes us vulnerable to each other. And when we risk love on each other, we easily inflict pain on each other, for which we must ask for forgiveness and offer forgiveness over and over and over in friendships and partnerships and marriages, over and over and over again. And in that, again, we realize with humility, we are prone to error, to hurt that and those who we love the most. And so when we arrive at this moment, this most difficult moment of offering loving kindness to those who are difficult for us, those difficult for us in small ways and those difficult for us in enormous ways, those who are a real danger to us, who have done us real damage and threat, we have already reckoned with our value and our humble humanity. The meta-meditation prepares us with humility so that when we turn our consciousness, turn our attention to those who are most difficult for us, we know, however justified we may be, we know that we are difficult for other people too. And so we turn to them with compassion, with what loving kindness we can muster, even small. And from a great distance, we can send them that metta, that love and kindness, that care for them simply as human beings, even if the boundary that separates us must needs be very great for their well-being and for ours. This loving kindness meditation, it can seem sentimental, but it comes out of spiritual traditions born thousands of years ago in context around the world, out of times of civil conflict. The expression of Ren in Confucianism comes out of a time of civil war in ancient China, when the states of China were ripping each other apart in an endless cycle of violence born of greed and the lust for power. Warlords whose sole ambition was to defeat one another. But of course, if you are a warlord who has just defeated the other warlords and now you have seized territory and wealth, you've got to be watching out for who of your enemies or who in your ranks is now going to come for you. It's like the mafia. There's always somebody ready to usurp whoever the leader is. And so life becomes an endless power grab. And of course, what happens is that the people who plant the fields and who tend the vineyards and who cultivate the land, the people on whom we depend, think of immigrant laborers today on whom our entire food supply and much of our economy depends. These people are trampled in the race for power and greed. As it was then, so it is now. And out of that moment, the Confucian philosophy of structuring a society of right relationship developed, and loving kindness as the lifeblood was insisted upon by Confucius, the thing that gives heart to a new way of being in relationship with each other that transformed China. I know China is a top-heavy bureaucracy that oppresses many minority groups and exerts enormous power and greed in the world. And nonetheless, this concept of Ren, of loving kindness, still flows through that culture, seeking a better way. And there are people who protest and resist, seeking a more equitable, just, loving life in that culture. In Hinduism and Jainism and Buddhism, the principles of ahimsa and maitri, of nonviolence and loving kindness, developed in the context of a highly oppressive hierarchical caste system, and efforts in a new form of philosophical Hinduism that eschewed priestly rites and rituals for personal yogic meditation and enlightenment, and Jainism with its profound meditation on the ethical life and harm to none, and Buddhism, which saw all of life as suffering, in which we are all joined in an interconnected web of being, in which, when we face that suffering, we gather a wisdom that allows us to be compassionate towards all. Each of these forms of religion developed a time of urbanization and rising merchant class and vast wealth inequities to try to level society and usurp the caste system, to find a different way. Hesed in the Hebrew tradition came out of a time of vast inequities, of priestly and kingly privilege that corrupted the people of Israel and left them vulnerable to assault from other empires. So the people were summoned to a different way. Agape, in early Christianity, summoned people to share their resources, practical resources, just sharing as a way to undermine the hierarchies of wealth and privilege and power and citizenship in the Roman Empire. Loving kindness is a practice born out of civil conflict and inequity to teach us a different way so that we establish a new way of being, a new way of living together. Not sentimental, not at all. It's about choosing to live in relationship with one another when we don't feel like doing it, and when the world around us would pit us against each other, manipulate and confuse us. Loving kindness in each of these traditions seeks to establish new relationships, new boundaries, so that across those boundaries we can express real care for one another's humanity when the stakes are high and violence is rampant in service to power and greed. This is not about sentiment at all. This is resolutely practical at times of dire need. In contemporary philosophy and theology, particularly in the West, but in other traditions as well, there are vast debates and enormous tomes written on whether love, the fundamental principle of many of our spiritual traditions, has any place in governing a society. Can love have any place in governance? And the general answer is no, that it's too weak as a principle for structuring society. One very famous thinker in our own day, Cornel West, a person who knows a great deal about justice and injustice in our own society, has said that justice is love in public form. And that is a beautiful sentiment, one born out of the best aspects of this philosophical and theological wrestling in the Western tradition. But we heard today a different voice of a woman, a black queer woman, Angel Kyoto Williams, a teacher in the Zen Buddhist tradition from which the metta meditation comes. She has a brilliant interview with Krista Tippett's On Being program. You can look it up, and I encourage you to read the whole thing. Angel Kyoto Williams comes out of an activist background and entered into Zen as a spiritual practice, and has now become one of the most prominent Zen teachers in our nation today. fusing Buddhist teaching and social justice activism. And out of the Buddhist thought process of non-duality, Angel Kyoto Williams says something different about love and justice. She says, love and justice are not two. Love and justice are not two. There must be accountability and recognition of humanity, love. Accountability and mercy. Accountability and even forgiveness together to be in right relationship with each other. That by establishing boundaries of accountability, you have done this, and therefore we must establish a boundary. And also we recognize your humanity. Love and justice fuse in small ways and in very large, so that we restructure a society corrupted by violence in the service of power and greed. Think about the times that we're living in. Times of misinformation meant to confuse people so that they will act with violence against the very people they share a world with. I was listening to some reports about conspiracy theories this week. Conspiracy theories that are rampant and accepted by millions of people in our country, that have been intentionally planned to wedge people and manipulate them. Exactly the thing that happens in our individual lives has happened on a massive social scale, perpetuated by people fueled by the lust for power and greed, for political office and for economic gain. Whole media outlets jumping into conspiracy theories to make a buck. Totally unethical, totally immoral. Nothing about community and fellow feeling in that. But many, many people willing to go that route. And I know that as in my life, so also in yours. As I had conversations this week with people who've bought into these conspiracy theories, you have too, many of you. This is rampant and everywhere and affecting us all. And inauguration doesn't change that. What do we do? What do we do when these are our family members? What do we do when people talk to us in the midst of an insurrection, justifying the insurrection? What do we do? The best researchers trying to help us have said that the thing that disrupts conspiracy theories, the thing that best breaks the grip on the mind and the life that conspiracy theories have made, that breaks that hold, is an expression of unconditional love. That so much of what has happened with conspiracy theories is that people have been drawn into an orbit that is all-consuming. It has been their whole focus in life. They consume hours and hours of media a day, and it becomes an obscured reality that they're living in, so they're willing to break relationship with family members, not see newborn children, not see relatives that they love, not attend to brothers and sisters, siblings, children, parents, spouses, willing to sever all of that for the false community of misinformation and conspiracy. It's given them such meaning, such a constructed reality, that it has become all-consuming. These researchers say that a direct assault on that only pushes the person away more. It only confirms the false narrative that they bought into. But the thing that breaks that interrupts the mind pattern, is to remind the person of memories from before the conspiracy theory, of meals and vacations and loving moments and laughter, moments of happiness, memories from before they had become lost in this made-up, destructive world. To interrupt those patterns of thought, now once, now again, with memories and expressions of unconditional love. This is not absent accountability. In those relationships, we must establish boundaries to protect ourselves so that we are not run over by the misinformation and violence that has been fomented. We have to be smart about that. And strong boundaries, short conversations, brief phone calls, not getting sucked into argumentation, all of those boundaries that we establish, those are healthy for us and for these people who are most difficult for us. And through those boundaries, across them, to send moments of love, expressions of unconditional respect and appreciation, valuing for that person's humanity and the memory of something more than this lost world into which they've become sunk. And then the researchers say for those leaders who have intentionally deployed manipulation for their own gain, who have intentionally misled on January 6th and before January 6th and after, there must be real justice, real accountability. You have done this, and it has broken relationship, and now we must establish a boundary that says you cannot pass beyond here. And across that boundary still, to express a valuing of that person's humanity, to dehumanize none. Love and justice are not two. Boundaries and loving kindness interrupt the distortions of violence and power and greed that have shaped our societies around the world and through time from thousands of years ago up to our own society today. And the meditation gives us a practice of humility and power every day over and over again to offer love, to value the humanity across the necessary boundaries we've established for those who are most difficult for us, with whom we share this broken world. I was communicating with a member of this congregation a few weeks ago, and I asked them how they were spending their pandemic. What are you doing during the pandemic? And the person's answer knocked me over. It was so vulnerable and honest and brilliant. They said, I'm working on forgiveness. I'm working on forgiveness. That simple phrase shows us the way. This is a process, one that we cannot do in one step, one that we must do with care for ourselves and for others, one that we don't just expose ourselves to danger when we know the danger is real, and one that we don't just turn away from either. I'm working on forgiveness because it's not enough to leave the world broken, and it's insufficient to act like it's not. Loving kindness is not a sentiment. It's what we do when we don't feel loving and kind. And from China to India to the Mediterranean world to our own society today, in the ways that human beings repeatedly violate each other and hurt each other with violence in the service of power and greed. Like a little light, like a compass, we carry the practice of loving kindness to help us enter into the ambiguity and the murkiness, the misinformation and distortions, to establish boundaries to express over and over again love and respect for the humanity of every person with whom we share this world. Everyone without exception. Everyone a human being. Everyone a human being worthy of my love and respect. Unconditionally. I'm working on forgiveness.
Peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God our Creator, children all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God our Creator, children all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
We extinguish the chalice again with a quote from Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams. For us to transform as a society, we have to allow ourselves to be transformed as individuals. And for us to be transformed as individuals, we have to allow for the incompleteness of any of our truths and real forgiveness for the complexity of human beings and what we're trapped inside of, so that we're both able to respond to the oppression, the aggression that we're confronted with, but we're able to do that with a deep and abiding sense of, and there are people, human beings, that are at the other end of that baton, that stick, that policy, that's also trapped in something. They're also trapped in a suffering. And for sure, we can witness that there are ways in which they're benefiting from it, but there are also ways, if one trusts the human heart, that they must be suffering. And holding that at the core of who you are when responding to things, I think, is the only way we really have forward. To not just replicate systems of oppression for the sake of our own cause.
Love and justice are not to establish boundaries with those who are most difficult. And send love, a love that disrupts systems of violence and oppression, that researchers tell us disrupts in a way that nothing else does. An unconditional love that disrupts systems of violence and oppression with the power of a love beyond belief.
We have spent